Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Empowered Podcast. My name is David Estrada. I'm with World Impact, and today, here's the question. How can the church end everyday hunger in our urban communities? How can the church, and I'm talking about urban church, the church worldwide, and especially in our cities in America, how can the church end everyday hunger in urban communities? Thank you for returning and joining us, all of you who have watched our Empowered Part podcast or listened to the podcast. Today, we are talking with one of the most charismatic men in the Twin Cities, right? Carl Johnson, planter and pastor of Faith City Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Just thank you so much, Carl, for joining us today. I know you're a busy man, and we will find out how busy you are during this podcast, but how are you doing today, man?
Oh, man, I'm doing awesome. Took a day off so I could be with you guys and prepare for speaking about ending hunger, man, my passion.
This is your passion, and you're also pastoring a church.
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
you got too many hats going on.
Oh, I don't think I have enough some days.
Well, and a father, and a husband. We've met, I don't know, man, it's been over a year or so ago. Yeah. It just seems like a lifetime ago since the pandemic has hit. And just absolutely love not just your spirit, but, even your testimony, man. What a powerful testimony from where you have been to now. I mean, that's been amazing. What would you say? I mean, just, man, even before we get to end in hunger.
Yeah.
How has your journey prepared you, you know what I mean, for this? Just quickly, you grew up, and by the way, my dad, left when I was 5 years old. Your dad was gone at 6. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Single parent household, just trying to make it. And I absolutely went off the rails as a teenager. But then the Lord called us both back, and now we're doing work for the Lord. How has that prepared you for where you're at now?
Yeah, so my mom actually worked for a mega church when I was a kid.
No kidding.
In Atlanta. She was like an administrative assistant to a mega church pastor, Bishop Eddie L. Long. And then switched her into being a benevolence coordinator. And so she coordinated everything so benevolence in the Baptist church is like anything you need, any of your basic needs, financial needs, if somebody passed away, if somebody wanted to give a car, help families, she handled all that kind of stuff. And I just remember just being able to serve alongside her. She would say, come to church. She'd be like, come do this with me. And just seeing the benefit of people who had open-handed generosity in the beginning. Yeah. And so I would say that she prepared me for a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about. She was impacted by it deeply. The struggles that I went through actually hurt her a lot. And we even talked recently about how there's trauma still around memories. Like I have one memory, she had another memory, and like we didn't remember the same thing. Didn't know as a kid, I didn't know this was going on. And so there's a lot of things that we would say, like when we're saved, we don't know the impact it had on our parents, and like the thankfulness that they have, the grace of God is on our lives right now. And I think she prepared me for a lot of those resilient conversations and resilient lifestyle that we have. My lifestyle was up and down. It was like a roller coaster. So, yeah.
Well, man, can we just give it up for the mothers? Amen.
Yeah.
All the single mothers and single fathers. I mean, there's single dads out there that are struggling and trying to make it. You and I both know, we both pastor in the city and have worked in the city, and single parent households is just a reality. It's not a television sitcom. It's real life every single day. And in your ministry now, do you see a lot of that?
Oh my goodness. Yes. We see a lot single dads. We see a lot of single dads, more than I've ever anticipated seeing. We see a lot of single moms. Just a reality. We see a lot of widows who are very young, and so probably talk about that a little bit today. That affects us because we probably don't have that concept anymore, David. When we think about young moms who lose their fathers or their children's fathers to violence and everyday thing that happens to them, and so they're now widows in the church, and so and that concept just came up. I was like, oh my God, Lord, we need to take care of widows. We need to take care of them, and so
just think about the widows in our churches right now, but we think of the elderly widow, but that's just not the reality anymore.
Right. Yeah. So these are some of the things we think about. So I don't want to go on a rabbit trail.
No, I tell you what. Well, let me ask you a question. Not only have you spurred your passion, and we're going to talk about the grocery store, but you have this passion not only for the city, but you have planted a church, Faith City Church. I talk to a lot of pastors, and I talk to a lot of pastors in the city. And can I be honest with you? Some of the hurdles that urban pastors have to deal with is just encouragement. People don't believe in small church taking over a city in an urban neighborhood. Who encouraged you? Who empowered you? Who told you could plant a church?
Nobody told me. So what happened is my first assignment out of Bible college, I was associate pastor at an inner city church plant. Okay. So I was in Bible college, and I asked one of my professors who started like Bible colleges all over the world. I said, where do you think I should go? And he said, Carl, you should go serve at an inner city church plant. I said, all right, done deal. So that's what I did. And I served at an inner city church plant in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was the most agonizing, horrible experiences I've had in my life.
Okay.
I walked away from that experience and said, I will never plant a church.
No kidding.
Yep. That's what happened. I prayed every single day, and it was like hitting ceilings. Like just meeting my wife, and we were just engaged, and we were on the phone every morning praying together because of just the spiritual darkness in St. Louis and the hardships that were surrounded. If you ever spent time outside of in the inner city of St. Louis, like Delmar Boulevard, Central West End, and you go down these streets and you'll see these large monolithic churches, and all of a sudden they're all boarded up. There's nothing. You'll see these huge apartment buildings and they're all boarded up, and then you'll go down streets because they don't like joyriding, and they got these barricades at the end of streets, and then everything has bars on it, and you're just like, man, I grew up in New Jersey and New York, and that I never see anything like this before in my life. And as a young pastor, this was the reality that I was walking down the streets, and you couldn't feed the homeless openly. You had to have packaged goods, and if they found you feeding the homeless, they were going to fine you. And so it was dangerous doing what God called you to do. We would do outdoor meals for the homeless, and the police would actually break us up. They would tell us to go home. And so we kept doing it as long as until they come to break us up, until they found out or somebody called on us. And so there was some radicalness in the midst of doing that, and I think that right there said the church needed to respond to the needs of the community. And I knew how important that was. After being in St. Louis and seeing that had to be pivotal for the church to be there. Because if the church wasn't there to influence, then we would see what happens in St. Louis.
Absolutely. And it's happening today all over the country.
Yeah. And so compassion is one of the things that I found that we need to have when we're reaching the poor. Jesus said it. I call it Jesus' mission station. Isaiah 61:1. Preach good news to the poor. Yes. That's the first thing he tells us to do. And I don't want to get in semantics. I just say who's ever overlooked or underserved, that's who you preach the good news to.
Yeah.
And that's it's glad tidings for everyone.
Well, something you were saying, the words radical and passion, those go together. If you want to work in the city, you have to have some radical passion to break down barriers and
Yeah.
reach people that have never that are overlooked.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned, you had done or you have provided food to the homeless in St. Louis. Was that, where your goal to end everyday hunger was spurred, or how did that passion come to you to end everyday hunger in the city?
Yeah, so when I said I will no longer work be a church plant, I got a job at an established church in a small town, 40,000 people. Loved it. I could go in the news and talk about Jesus. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then my pastor, who I was working for, I was associate pastor at that church, New Life Church International. Give him a shout out in Lima, Ohio. And he said, "Carl, I want you to run the soup kitchen and the food pantry." And so as I'm doing research on like what to do about this, I come across this term called food insecurity. And my wife is a social worker, and I've never actually heard this term or even like knew what this term meant. And food insecurity meant that families can't put food on their table 3 out of 5 days a week. We're not even talking about 7 days. We're just talking about
Right.
3 out of 5. And what that meant was that in St. Paul, that's 1 in 6, but in Lima, it was like 1 in 14.
Wow.
And
Hold on, wait a minute. Carl, state that again. What's the definition of food insecurity?
food insecurity, when people, so there's a couple of different definitions, part of it, but the basic layman terms is that you can't put food on your table 3 out of 5 days of the week.
3 out of 5 days. Like you said, we're not even talking about 7 days a week.
Right.
But a family is not able to put food on the table even 3 out of 5 days out of the week.
Yeah.
Wow. And you said, so what's that look like in the nation, or even specifically in your city?
Yeah. So in St. Paul, and we're not even going to talk about Minneapolis, because that food insecurity is going to be reimagined after COVID and the riots. But right now, it looked like 66,000 people in the city of St. Paul don't have food.
Wow. They would be considered food insecure.
Yeah, 1 in 6 families.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's happening. That was happening before the virus.
Yeah.
It'll be happening during and after.
Yeah. Yeah. So
wow,
that was a huge thing. Yeah.
So what are the challenges getting food into the community?
Well, there really are, so there's so many different challenges. But the first 4 challenges we have when we talk about food insecurity, the first hurdles, I would say the first hurdles is accessibility, being able to access food. The second thing is being able to afford food.
Yeah.
The third thing is knowing how to use it, the food that you're buying. And the fourth thing is knowing where to get like the food that you're buying. Like, so a lot of people don't know where to get fruits and vegetables. They don't live on that. So like you go to a soup kitchen, you're not getting fruits and vegetables at a soup kitchen. You rarely see that at a soup kitchen. And so people don't get used to it. We get used to processed foods. Everybody has a food story. Like my wife's food story is Mexican food, like not Tex-Mex, like authentic Mexican food.
Authentic Mexican food, yeah.
Like corn tortillas,
right,
onions and cilantro on a taco like that, and the corn man rolling through her neighborhood making elotes for her.
Right.
Yeah, that is her story of food. Like we eat that story every day. Like those are the things that she's used to. And some families have a different story. Everybody has a different story around food. Mine was soul food. Like growing up, soul food, fried chicken, fried pork chops, mother pork chops, all the goods, all the trimmings. And those were the stories, like eating pasta, eating spaghetti, pizza. Oh, those are my food stories. But there's people who don't have really good food stories. You know, one of the rappers of Wu-Tang, he describes his life as finding roaches and cornflakes.
Right.
You know, that was his food story. And he spoke through hip hop for people to realize the plight that he was having as a kid growing up with no food. And so as we think about these, everybody has a food story. Everybody doesn't understand what it's going to look like to have that. I remember Ruben Studdard, he got really famous, and he had to go on like this diet because the first time he had money, he could buy like good food. And he didn't know like how to eat healthy with good food because he never had it. So like there's like some realities that we really don't think about when it comes to food insecurity. Like people need to know how to use the food that they're able to buy. Like I tell people, don't tell people to just eat all these fruits and vegetables. You got to teach them how to eat these things. They can't just eat them automatically. You know, my son loves green beans. I had to teach him to eat green beans.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
He come out saying, "Oh, I want green beans all the time," and so he likes them with paprika and pepper. So like,
right. You know? He's got a specific taste. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think when we talk about food insecurity in our cities, we think people should take whatever we give them, and that's another misjudgment of what it means to feed the hunger. And like you have to create meals that people understand and know that match their story. And so in our neighborhood, we had to develop meals that make sense to their story. Like I couldn't come into my neighborhood and do what did my wife like? It's like with the mashed potatoes, shepherd's pie. I couldn't come in my neighborhood serving shepherd's pie. They were like, "What is this?" But I could come in my neighborhood and we could do fried tacos. And I don't know if y'all have fried tacos in Kansas. But yeah, so Mexican food is really popular in the Twin Cities, which is very interesting. So we serve, and then African Americans like country fried steak. So we serve that. And so there's some things like, oh, that's not really healthy. But the point is not to be healthy. The point is to get them to eat first. Real balanced meals. At least once a week or sometime during that week, you can just alleviate that. But the point is to make sure that they're eating a real meal, a catered meal that can satisfy them, that doesn't have fillers in it and doesn't have substitutes in it so that they be hungry in another 5-10 minutes.
Wow. I mean, just thinking of, the four, or say the four again.
Yeah. So access to food, affordable food, knowing what affordable, the food is, knowing how to use it.
Yeah. Man, if we could just somehow get that plastered, right, and just the knowledge, honestly, of the challenges and the barriers to food insecurity, that would change the church right there.
Yeah.
Well, how is your church addressing, food insecurity in your community?
Yeah, so we picked two. We couldn't do all four right away. And we knew we can't handle the whole conversation at one time. So we said we need to decide in this moment what we can do and do it well. And so one of the things we said, we want to bring access to food to families. And so what did that mean? So does that mean we open up a food pantry or do we open up a grocery store to give them ownership to buy like the basic needs? And we didn't want to open up a food pantry because there were a lot of food pantries. And food pantries here have like a different kind of concept than everywhere else. Like we have lottery systems, and the overabundance of food pantries is also like an underabundance of access. So what that means, like if they have a food pantries on Thursday at 1:00, if you got a single mom who's working till 6 or 7, and she has to take off work, take 2 buses, or get somebody to give her a ride to come get this food, that actually doesn't make sense to her. That doesn't help her, actually. That actually makes it even worse for her to get the food. So we said the best thing for us to do on a weekly basis is to actually just do a meal. Do a meal so this mom doesn't have to worry about what she's going to cook or what she's going to do during the day. She got 7 or 8 kids. We got enough food to feed all her kids and dessert and drinks, and so that she can go home and they can feel satisfied and everybody can go to sleep. And I think that's such a better use of our funds than to just fill up a food pantry and hope we give out the food before it expires. And so that's one of the
most church planters are entrepreneurs, or have that ability to see the situation, adapt to it, and that's exactly what you guys have done. What have you seen? What have you seen happening in your community now that you're beginning to address it?
So in the very beginning, when we started to see a lot of people coming to Christ that never came to Christ. We had grown men crying because we would do what we call like this dinner church. We call it neighborhood meals now. And dinner church was this concept where we serve a meal. My wife sings worship. I do narrative preaching, and then we just ask 5 questions at the table. And as we ask these 5 questions, the Spirit just opens up people's lives. And the next thing you know, they're committing their life to Jesus and ready to be discipled because of this meal.
Wow.
And that's just a missional move of God. You know, he's already there. He just needs somebody to interact with people so that what the Spirit is doing, it can be fruit. It can be what he fruit can come from it. And so that was one of the hugest things for us. And so there's 2 stories that really come to mind. The first story that came to mind was there was this man who came off the street, and he said this woman stopped him and said, God's going to come to you this week. And he was like, I don't even believe in God. He's not going to come to me this week. Not at all. Then he got a flyer from when we were passing out flyers for our dinner church. He came in, and I was praying with him, and he said, I cannot believe I'm in here right now, listening to what you're saying, because a woman told me that God's going to come to me this week, and I didn't believe her. And he just started crying, and the Holy Spirit started convicting him, and he wanted to come to God, and he did.
Wow.
He came to God that day, and we built a relationship with him. And that was like just one experience of like what happens when both these things are coming together, like the church and people's needs are coming together. We start to see miracles in the midst of that. And so another story that's so jarring that got me, we had this lady named Tracy. She went to another church, but she would come to our Wednesday night meals because she loves my wife singing. And we would do Thanksgiving. We call it Friendsgiving. So we do a Friendsgiving for our community. And she was trying to come to Friendsgiving. She said something. She was like, can I invite anyone? I said, yeah, you invite anyone you want. So she invited her daughter and her 2 sons. Now, she didn't tell me this before, but this was the first time her family got to sit down and eat a meal in 15 years together.
Wow.
And she said her son was addicted to heroin, and that she couldn't let him in the house. And they had made a decision that he couldn't come to the house. And this was the first time her family got to have a relationship together and sit down at Thanksgiving and have a meal together. And it was such a beautiful thing. And I said, I had no idea.
Yeah.
This would be the fruit of offering a meal to families. And so these are the things that happen when God is just moving. And that was one of the most powerful stories for me. Those things that happen, and I just love that. I love when stuff like that just reconciliation of families right at the dinner table.
Well, and those are the things that happen when you allow God to move through a need.
Yeah.
You know, God moves through a need. He will do the work. It's just, are there people willing to do it? And so you have a grocery store, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So who comes and tell us about the grocery store?
Yeah, the grocery store was a 5-year dream that happened in a year and a half. I didn't expect it to happen so quick. Actually, I went to Dean training in Wichita, part of World Impact. And I came away saying, God, I need a model for our church to replicate in. I need something. And the words came to my mind, every church a grocery store.
Wow.
And I said, oh, man. So then I said, micro grocery store, what is that? What is it going to look like? I know I can't have no full-scale grocery store because that's the church is definitely not going to operate. And so the next thing I did was Google, and I Googled and I found this thing called store-bought grocers. And they were like they were like in this construction container.
Okay.
And they had a micro grocery store in an apartment complex that had like 150 items, and they were low cost. And I was like, man, that's exactly what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so I went home. I met this guy who was an architect who built like $1 million tree house at a prayer meeting, called him up, and I said, hey, let's meet. I got an idea I want to talk to you about. I talked to him. He said, hey, I got another friend that would love to do this with us. So he called him, and then we all met and drew like a schematic. Then we just started working towards like fundraising for that. And then somebody actually gave a large gift so that we could have seed money for that to happen. And then we were trying to look for land, and we had some problems with cities. And I was just like, Lord, we need to do this. Like, this needs to happen. I have the faith to get this going. Will you please like accelerate it? And so he accelerated it, and just having faith in that. And next thing you know, we found a space that was suitable. We redesigned it, called in a muralist to do a mural in a store, set up the store. We did a partnership with a big box grocery store, and we launched that in November of last year. On Small Business Saturday. And then so we've been operating there. And so a story about that grocery store is like everybody in our church helped remodel it. We had some construction workers. They helped be a part of this. And then one of the huge things that happened when we opened the grocery store, every single person that walked in, every single person was like, you know what, this isn't big, but this is going to be big.
Wow.
And they were like, I love this.
Yeah.
We need this to happen everywhere. And I was like, and they weren't believers.
Right. Yeah.
God was prophetically speaking with them that he wanted to see this multiply. And that was just like so amazing to me. Was like, and I said, well, you own this too. Come and shop. Make sure that happens. Make sure we can do that. And that was like one of the amazing things. Then we had a young lady come, and she volunteered for free as like an assistant manager.
No kidding.
Yeah. And she organizes. I just do the ordering. She runs the register. She does some social media stuff for me. Then she did that, and she was like she wanted to go out to protest. So another girl came in during COVID. And so she don't have a job. She's there every day from 1 to 5. So she's there every day, 1 to 5. So she's helping us out. And so we do a volunteer base in our grocery store.
Gotcha.
And so I just thought, like, man, how people have been drawn to it. And then so we've helped other young Black business people selling T-shirts outside of our store. People knowing it, and then they're seeing a Black-owned grocery store that they haven't seen in forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Things that a lot of people come in and like, man, this is dope. And you're a pastor? I'm like, yeah. And so those are the things that we are engaged in our community every day.
Well, I want to ask, and I know we don't have much time left, but two major things have happened, not only just near you, but across the country.
Yeah.
Not only COVID-19, but now the protests and the civil unrest. How has and you just started the grocery store in November, right? So this is all within your first year. You have weathered or are going through these two storms of situations. So how have you adjusted your ministry just specifically for COVID-19?
Yeah, so we were actually met in a community center every single Sunday. We couldn't do that any longer. Even if we wanted to, the community center was shut down. And so we had like no options except for going Zoom. So we went Zoom. And I said, listen, people are going hungry. Like, stuff is shutting down. Homeless people are getting kicked out of homeless shelters. Stuff is happening. Homeless camps are being beat up, and we have to figure out a way to respond. Yeah. And so one of our big things, I'll just put that out there for everybody to know, that I believe that the church should respond to everything. They should be the first to respond. So, and as ambassadors of Christ, we respond first. And so I said, the best way for me to respond to our family in needs is to give them a hot meal. And what is that going to look like? They're going to get meals from school. They're going to be cold. They're going to have to prepare that. How am I going to help young families or families at large be able to get hot meals in their bellies as fast as possible? And so I called my friend that usually caters, and I said, hey, man, right now, I need 200 hot dogs. And he gave me 200 hot dogs, and the church paid for it. And I said, oh, we need to continue to do this, because everybody came for the hot dogs, and they were going in like an hour and a half, and they were so thankful. And it was like, when's the next one? And I was like, oh man. So
there's got to be a next one.
Yeah. So I put out a call to do more hot meals, and we have served over 3,200 hot meals since March 15. and we do them. And now we went from doing once a week to twice a week, and then we help other organizations. Right now, we pay for other organizations to get hot meals in other neighborhoods. God is
So amazing.
us, and what we notice is like the Lord really blessed us in seeing a movement happen. Our church grew, and people are like part of our church now because of the hot meals. We saw people come closer to God because of that,
right?
And come to the store, and it's so thankful. But we just saw, like, we sometimes, I call it mission drift. Sometimes things happen in your ministry and people are listening, and sometimes things happen in your ministry, you get off, you go on a rabbit trail.
Right.
You think you have to do these things and these things and these things when God's called you to do one specific thing. And we've always told, stay in your lane, stay in your lane.
Yes.
Do one specific, but it's hard to stay in your lane when there's a bunch of other stuff happening all around you.
Right.
But we really focused on doing these meals and raise money. And so we were able to raise money every month to cover these meals. And so as we're doing this, I'm not even thinking about this. I'm not even, my caterer, I'm like, oh, he's cool. He'll take care of me. But as we're doing this, my caterer is telling me I'm his only business.
Wow.
I'm the only one ordering from him.
Yeah.
So as he's doing this, he's able to keep putting people in jobs.
Exactly.
And one of the assistants was like, so 2 stories. One of the assistants came up to me and said, hey, are you going to keep doing this? And I said, yeah. He's like, thank you. I didn't know where I was going to get money from.
Right.
So every time I do it, he gets to work.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And then so another guy came up to me. His name was Marcus. And Marcus is like, hey, who are these for? And I said, they're for people in my community. Oh, he says, oh, how much are you charging for them? And I said, they're for free. And he like paused, looked at me like I was really crazy.
Yeah.
Basically, he said, thank you.
Yeah.
And those are things I didn't even think about.
Right.
Like the ecosystem of others.
Yes.
And when we raise money, we just think about, just our ministry, but the ecosystem of helping others in the midst of COVID was even more of a blessing than we knew. That we're not only blessing others who are hungry, but allowing others who prepare the meals to be able to feed families as well.
Well, and so many times, not only through your life, but through scripture, opposition and trials are often the gateways that God uses to spread the gospel and to advance the kingdom. Yeah. It's just, it happens throughout scripture, and it shouldn't change now. The church is a part of the ecosystem in every single community. And I mean, for World Impact, our goal is to see a healthy church in every community of poverty in the world. Yeah. And we love being able to partner with you just to make that happen in St. Paul. I don't want to let you go before just asking you, what has been your experience in the last couple of weeks? I mean, you're really close to Minneapolis. Yeah. And just even in your neighborhood and for yourself, what's been your experience over the last couple of weeks?
It's been a roller coaster of emotions, of hurt, pain, grief, and then figuring out a way to call the church to justice, call the church to pray for justice, to lament correctly for George Floyd and the loss of lives that we have. Our neighborhood has been ravaged by police shootings. It is not something, people don't even call the police in our neighborhood. I have actually done it twice, only because it was a car accident. One that somebody wrecked my own car, and this other one I saw somebody run into a pole, and they never showed up. So like this is what's happening. We are calling people to justice in the midst of this, and we believe what has affected us so much is that we feel the same. I don't know anybody who is not hurting in this moment. Yeah. That's Black or a person of color. Something interesting. We had somebody selling Black Lives Matter shirts outside of our store. Now I posted on Facebook, and and a Latino dad. We're right next to a Latino bakery, and a Latino dad saw it, and he had two daughters in the back of the car, and he called them both out, and he said, "Hey, do you have one in white or you have one in black?" And they picked out a color for them to have a Black Lives Matter shirt, and he paid for them. And I said, imagine the conversations he's probably had or haven't had, and the expression of what he just did for his daughters, because they were in joy when they had it.
Yeah.
Let me go back to a scripture that really, let me see if I can find it real quick. I've been writing a lot of stuff down.
Well, and it, you know, even as you look for it, it really is, this is hitting our communities so drastically, so dramatically. I mean, I think it's been, of course, as we've seen all over the world, you know, all the world, there's a lot of protests. There's a lot of upheaval, unrest in small towns and big towns, but the unrest never left the city. You know what I mean? It's always been there.
Yeah.
It may be hitting rural America now, but it never left inside of the inner city.
Yeah, Proverbs 21:15 says, when justice is done, it is joy to the righteous.
Yes.
And when I saw those girls' faces, that's when I saw joy for them. And so I think that's one of the things that we have kept in front of when justice is done. So we keep praying for justice. We lament every Sunday at our church, not just once. We're continuing to lament and have conversations around this. And I think that is the one thing that has affected us the most, is that we haven't stopped. We have leaned in even deeper.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, and again, thank you so much, Carl, for just spending time and sharing not just your passion to end everyday hunger, but just, you know, dealing with life in America right now.
Yeah.
How are you, you know, and what advice do you give to our listeners? How do you take care of your family, you know, spiritually, mentally, you know, physically, emotionally? How do you take care of yourself in times like these?
Yeah. So for me and my family, our son is 4. He doesn't know anything about this. So the conversations that me and my wife have, he probably will never understand for a long time. But for me and my wife, is to give so if you're spiritually family, give your family a place to grieve. Like, have a place to have these conversations. If your wife doesn't like watching the news, turn it off. You know, don't be at odds with information. You know, be together and try to bridge those conversations and listen to each other. And that way you can gain experiences and grow deeper in how you communicate this to other people. And so I think usually we think information is knowledge, but we want wisdom in this. So we need knowledge and understanding. And God wants us to have wisdom and justice, not just to say, hey, this is wrong, but why does this keep happening? And how can we respond as a family and as a church to bring wisdom into the conversation?
Amen. Well, Pastor Carl, thank you again so much. And if people want to find out more information about ending everyday hunger, if they have questions, I mean, you have done so much, and so, you know, it seems like a quick amount of time, but I mean, the Lord's been working on your vision and heart for a long time now. Are there ways to follow you, ways to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. I think Candy will put that up at 14 City. And then you can follow Storehouse Grocers. There's places where you can donate on our website. You can find out the stories. You can call me, email me, do all you can to see how you can do. And we want others. If you're interested in doing this, there's methods and ways in which can be communicable in every single neighborhood. And there are organizations, I mean, there's businesses that want this to happen. So God will open up the doors for that, just like he did for me.
So the church, we can be a part of ending everyday hunger in every community in the world. Is that right?
It is right.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please, again, tell your wife and son, you know, blessings from us and from me. And everyone, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget, the conversation doesn't end here. reach out on social media or email us at empowered@worldimpact.org with your questions, topic suggestions. We continue to fight every single day to see the advance of God's kingdom in the city, and just partner with people just like Pastor Carl all over the community, all over the world. So thank you so much. Thanks again, Pastor Carl. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much, and God bless you.